You press the gas. In 3 seconds, you're already doing 60 miles per hour. A few seconds after that, you're at 120, then 180, then 250, then 295 miles per hour. On a public highway, in a street-legal car built by a small team of Americans in Washington state that most people have never even heard of. Not Bugatti, not Koenigsegg, not Ferrari. An American car, the SSC Tuatara. And if you think you already know this story, I promise you, you don't. If you're into cars, speed, and American engineering doing the impossible, hit that subscribe button right now. You're going to want to be here for everything we cover on this channel. Act 1. The name tells you everything. Let's start with the name, because most people hear Tuatara and have absolutely no idea what it means. And once you understand it, you'll realize it's one of the most perfectly chosen names in automotive history. The Tuatara is a reptile. It lives only in New Zealand. It survived the dinosaurs. It has barely changed physically in over 200 million years. If you looked at one, you'd think it was some ancient, slow-moving lizard that belongs in a museum. But here's the thing. The Tuatara holds the record for the fastest rate of molecular evolution of any living creature on the planet. On the inside, at the cellular level, it is evolving faster than anything else alive. It looks ancient. It looks like it belongs to a different era. But underneath that exterior, it is moving faster than you can comprehend. That is this car. That is the entire philosophy, wrapped up in one word. It looks like something from a science fiction film. It looks almost too aggressive, too sharp, too angular to be real. But underneath that body, it is doing things that no other production car on Earth has ever done. And the story of how it got here, the obsession, the failure, the embarrassment, and the redemption is one of the greatest stories in American automotive history. So let's go back to the beginning. Act 2. The company that refused to quit. The year is 1998. A guy named Jared Shelby, and no, he has absolutely no relation to Carroll Shelby of Mustang fame, starts a company in Richland, Washington called Shelby Supercars, SSC, and his mission is simple, almost laughably ambitious. Build the fastest production car in America. Not the most luxurious, not the most expensive, the fastest. Now, at the time, the benchmark was the Bugatti Veyron. The Veyron was the car that had redefined what a production car could be. It had a 16-cylinder engine, over 1,000 horsepower, and a top speed of around 253 miles per hour. It was a European masterpiece, built by one of the most storied names in automotive history, backed by the resources of the Volkswagen Group. And Jared Shelby, operating out of Washington State with a fraction of the budget, decided he was going to beat it. In 2007, he did exactly that. The SSC Ultimate Aero hit 256.18 miles per hour on a two-way average run on a closed stretch of highway in Washington State. It was verified by Guinness World Records. An American car, built by a small independent company, had just beaten the best that Europe had to offer. The automotive world lost its mind. But then Bugatti came back. They released the Veyron Supersport, pushed the record to 267.8 miles per hour, and reclaimed the title. And just like that, SSC was back to second place. Here's where most companies would have packed it in. Most companies would have said, "We made our point. We had our moment. Let's move on." But Jared Shelby is not most people. He went back to the drawing board. He shut out the noise, and he started working on something that would make the Ultimate Aero look like a warm-up act. That car became the Tuatara. ACT3, a decade in the making. Development on the Tuatara began in the early 2000s. The car was officially unveiled in 2011 at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, and the automotive world got its first look at what SSC had been building. The reaction was immediate. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. But SSC didn't rush it. They spent years refining, testing, engineering, and re-engineering. The Tuatara didn't reach actual production until 2020. That's nearly a decade from reveal to road car. And when you understand what they were trying to build, that timeline makes complete sense. Because they weren't just building a fast car. They were trying to build the fastest production car in the history of the automobile. And that is not something you rush. The design was handled by Jason Castriota, the same man responsible for some of the most visually striking Ferraris and Maseratis ever produced. And when you look at the Tuatara, you can feel that pedigree. Every single line on that car serves a purpose. Every curve, every vent, every angle is a functional aerodynamic solution. Nothing on this car is decorative. Nothing is there just to look good. The drag coefficient sits at 0.279. CD. To put that in perspective, that is remarkably low for a car that is also generating serious downforce at speed. Most cars have to choose between low drag and high downforce. The Tuatara does both. At top speed, it generates enough downforce to keep all four tires planted on the road without bleeding off the velocity it needs to go even faster. The chassis is a carbon fiber monocoque. The body panels are carbon fiber. The whole car weighs just over 2,750 pounds. For reference, a Bugatti Chiron Supersport, one of the most powerful hypercars ever built, weighs nearly 4,400 pounds. The Tuatara is over 1,600 pounds lighter. In the world of performance cars, that is an absolutely enormous difference. Act 4. The engine. 1,750 horsepower. Now let's talk about what's sitting behind the driver, because this is where things get truly insane. The heart of the SSC Tuatara is a 5.9-liter twin-turbocharged V8 engine. But calling it just a V8 is like calling the Apollo 11 rocket just a firework. This engine was developed in partnership with Nelson Racing Engines, one of the most respected names in high-performance engine building in the country. These are the guys that other engine builders call when they need something done right. On regular 91-octane pump gas, the same stuff you put in your truck, this engine produces 1,350 horsepower and 984 pound-feet of torque. That number alone would make it one of the most powerful production cars ever built. But fill it with E85 ethanol fuel, and that number jumps to 1,750 horsepower and 1,322 pound-feet of torque. Let that sink in for a second. 1,750 horsepower in a car that weighs 2,750 pounds. The engine uses a flat plane crankshaft, which allows it to rev to 8,800 revolutions per minute, an absolutely screaming redline for a twin-turbocharged V8 of this displacement. It uses dual fuel injection per cylinder, meaning each cylinder gets two injectors working together to optimize combustion at every point in the rev range. The transmission is a SEMA 7-speed automated manual. And here's the thing about that gearbox. It was custom built specifically for this car. There are no off-the-shelf parts in the Tuatara's drivetrain. Every single component was engineered from scratch to handle the forces that this engine produces. Because at 1,750 horsepower, you cannot just bolt on a transmission from a parts catalog and hope for the best. The forces involved would tear a conventional gearbox apart. 0 to 60 miles per hour happens in under 2.5 seconds. 0 to 120 miles per hour takes roughly another 2.5 seconds after that. The acceleration curve doesn't flatten out the way it does in most cars. It just keeps pulling, and pulling, and pulling. ACT 5, the record attempt and the disaster. Now we get to the part of this story that most people know about. And if you don't know about it, buckle up, because this is one of the most dramatic moments in recent automotive history. October 2020. SSC releases footage of the Tuatara on a closed section of Nevada State Route 160. The driver is Oliver Webb, a professional racing driver. And according to the GPS data displayed in the video, the car hits 331.15 miles per hour on one pass, with a two-way average of 316.11 miles per hour. If verified, it would have been the fastest speed ever recorded by a production car in the history of the automobile. Not just the fastest American car, the fastest car. Period. The internet absolutely exploded. Car enthusiasts, engineers, journalists, and fans were celebrating what looked like the greatest American automotive achievement in decades. SSC was on top of the world. And then people started watching the footage more carefully. YouTube engineers, physics analysts, and automotive journalists began running calculations. They looked at the GPS data visible in the video. They looked at the landscape passing by. They measured the rate at which telephone poles were moving through the frame. They did the math, and the math did not add up. The car appeared to be moving significantly slower than 331 miles per hour. The numbers on screen and the visual evidence simply did not match. Within weeks, the story had completely unraveled. SSC acknowledged that there had been a GPS data error. The record was invalidated. For a small, independent American company that had just achieved what should have been its greatest moment, it was a catastrophic public embarrassment. The mockery was brutal. The skeptics were loud, and a lot of people wrote SSC off entirely. But Jared Shelby did not quit. Act 6. The comeback. Verified and undeniable. January 17th, 2021. SSC goes back to Nevada. This time, they bring independent verification. They bring RaceLogic VBOX equipment, the gold standard in automotive speed measurement. They bring GPS systems. They bring witnesses. They do everything right. And the Tuatara runs again. Northbound pass, 279.7 miles per hour. Southbound pass, 286.1 miles per hour. Two-way average, 282.9 miles per hour. That number, 282.9 miles per hour, is now the verified, undisputed, independently confirmed two-way average top speed record for a production car. It beats the Koenigsegg Agera RS's previous record of 277.9 miles per hour. It is real. It is documented. It cannot be argued with. But SSC wasn't done. May 14th, 2022. A driver straps himself into the Tuatara, points it down a closed highway in Nevada, and hits 295 miles per hour on a single pass. Confirmed by RaceLogic VBOX. Confirmed by GPS, 295 miles per hour in a street-legal production car. And here is what 295 miles per hour actually means. Because a number on a screen doesn't do it justice. At 295 miles per hour, you are covering 433 feet every single second. That is a full football field. Every single second. The reaction time of even the world's best racing drivers is around 0.2 seconds. That means between the moment something happens on the road ahead of you and the moment your brain tells your foot to hit the brake, you have already traveled nearly the length of a full city block. A small piece of debris on the road, a rock, a nail, a bottle cap, becomes a potentially catastrophic projectile at that speed. Tire failure doesn't mean a blowout. It means total structural disintegration. The tires on the Tuatara are custom Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 units, specially engineered and load-rated to handle forces at speeds above 300 miles per hour. And even those tires are operating near the absolute limit of what rubber and steel can physically endure. Think about that the next time you're doing 75 on the interstate and you feel like you're moving fast. Act 7. How it compares to the competition. Now, you might be wondering, what about the Bugatti Chiron Supersport 300 Plus? Didn't that car hit over 300 miles per hour? Yes. And no. Let's be precise about this, because the details matter. In 2019, Bugatti's test driver Andy Wallace hit 304.773 miles per hour in a Chiron Supersport 300 Plus. That is a real number. But here is what the fine print says. That run was a one-way pass, not a two-way average. The car had its speed limiter removed, and it was not in standard production specification. Bugatti themselves did not submit it as an official production car record. The SSC Tuatara's 282.9 miles per hour is a verified two-way average in a production specification car by the standards that have governed top speed records for decades. The same standards that governed the Bugatti Veyron's record, the same standards that governed the Ultimate Aero's record. The Tuatara holds the legitimate title. Now let's look at the power to weight comparison, because this is where the Tuatara absolutely destroys the competition. The Bugatti Chiron Supersport produces 1,578 horsepower and weighs 4,400 pounds. The Koenigsegg Jesko Absolut, which Koenigsegg claims is theoretically capable of 330 miles per hour, though it has never been verified, produces 1,616 horsepower and weighs around 3,153 pounds. The SSC Tuatara produces 1,750 horsepower on E85 and weighs 2,750 pounds. The power-to-weight ratio of this car is in a class by itself. There is no production car on the planet with a better power-to-weight ratio at this level of performance. Not one. And then there is the Tuatara Aggressor, the track-only variant that SSC built for the people who looked at the streetcar and thought, I need more. The Aggressor runs on methanol fuel and produces 2,200 horsepower and 1,604 pound-feet of torque. At 160 miles per hour, it generates 1,100 pounds of downforce. SSC is building only 10 of them. 10 in the world. Act 8. What it costs and who buys it. The base price of the SSC Tuatara starts at around $1.6 million. With options and customization, and there are a lot of options, you can push that number well past $2.5 million. Every single car is hand-assembled at SSC's facility in Richland, Washington. The production run is limited to approximately 100 units. Each one is completely bespoke. Customers work directly with SSC to specify their materials, their colors, their finishes, their interior configuration. No two cars are exactly alike. The interior is minimalist by hypercar standards. Carbon fiber everywhere. A digital instrument cluster. A steering wheel that looks like it belongs in a Formula One car. Because in every meaningful sense, that is exactly what this is. It is a Formula One car with license plates and a VIN number. The people buying these cars are not buying them to sit in a garage and appreciate in value, although they absolutely will appreciate in value. They are buying them because they want to experience something that no other object on Earth can provide. They want to know what it feels like to be in a machine that is operating at the absolute outer edge of what physics allows. And for $1.6 million, SSC will give them exactly that. Act 9. Why this car matters beyond the numbers. Here is the thing about the SSC Tuatara that gets lost in all the top speed discussions, and the record controversies, and the horsepower comparisons. This car was built in Washington State by Americans, by a small independent team of engineers who had no business competing with Bugatti, Koenigsegg, or any of the European hypercar manufacturers that have been doing this for decades. These are companies with billion-dollar parent corporations, decades of motorsport heritage, and engineering teams that number in the thousands. SSC has none of that. What they have is obsession. What they have is the refusal to accept that the answer is no. What they have is the same spirit that built the muscle car era, that put American iron on the drag strip and the oval track and the open road, and said, we belong here. When the 2020 record attempt blew up in their faces, and it blew up spectacularly, in front of the entire automotive world, they could have walked away. They could have quietly shut down, sold the assets, and moved on. Nobody would have blamed them. The embarrassment was real. The criticism was brutal. Instead, they went back to Nevada 3 months later with better equipment, better verification, and the same car. And they proved that the Tuatara is exactly what they always said it was. That is not a European story. That is not a story about a company with unlimited resources and a century of heritage to fall back on. That is an American story. That is the story of a guy from Washington State who decided he was going to build the fastest car in the world, got knocked down in front of everybody, got back up, and proved he was right. The Tuatara is not just the fastest production car in the world by the metrics that actually matter. It is proof that American engineering, American obsession, and American stubbornness can still compete at the absolute highest level of anything. So there it is. The full story of the SSC Tuatara. From a small company in Washington state with an impossible dream, to a verified 282.9 miles per hour, two-way average, and a 295 miles per hour one-way run that put the entire automotive world on notice. A car named after a reptile that looks ancient but evolves faster than anything alive. A car with 1,750 horsepower, a 0.279 drag coefficient, and a power-to-weight ratio that nothing else on the planet can touch. A car that failed publicly, came back, and proved every single doubter wrong. The SSC Tuatara is not just the fastest car on the planet. It is the most American car on the planet. And in my book, that makes it the greatest car on the planet. If you made it this far, do me a favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment below telling me what you think about the Tuatara, and subscribe if you haven't already. We cover the best cars, the biggest stories, and the most insane engineering on the planet every single week. You do not want to miss what's coming next. We'll see you in the next one.